The Justin Turner signing sort of felt like a nothing burger for a lot of fans. We sort of thought it was going to be good. Well, it's time for his season in review.
You are Locked On Blue Jays, your daily Toronto Blue Jays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jays. Thank you for making Locked On Blue Jays your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. As always, I'm Braden Iwasko. He's Carter First. You can find us on Twitter, Braden5Iwasko. Carter First too as well on Instagram and TikTok at Locked On Blue Jays. If you're new here to YouTube or you're listening anywhere else, we'd really appreciate it if you drop the subscription. Helps us out, keeps us at the top of your guys' page. And you'll be notified if there's any lives, shorts, videos, etc. So make sure you hit that button. It really does help out. As well, Discord link is in the description. You guys can come on, talk Blue Jays with us any time of day, anytime you want, and we'll be ready for it. A lot to get into today. I know I feel like I've been saying that the entire offseason so far, but a lot of stuff to go over, a lot of information to cover. Today, Justin Turner's season review, what happened. We're going over all like these trade pieces from the deadline to start off. Then we'll get into the active team moving into 2025. We're going to talk Trevor Richards as well. How did his season go with the Toronto Blue Jays and post-Toronto Blue Jays? And another big question of the day, another very interesting one. You guys seem to really enjoy the first one on Monday. So we're going to do another one because we had fun with it. We heard that you guys thought it was all right. So we'll continue on with those. Carter, let's get things going. Justin Turner, how did you think of this? Let's start off with when the signing happened. What was your initial thoughts?
Yeah, going all the way back to then, I didn't hate the signing whatsoever. We went from a 2023 season where we had Brandon Belt, and the narrative there was we wanted a veteran presence kind of to monitor this dugout by also playing good baseball and just being a role model for some of the younger players on this team. You have Brandon Belt. He definitely did it on the offensive side of the bat. But when you look at how big of a leader, how well of a leader Brandon Belt was in the dugout, he just isn't necessarily that serious guy that you need, the guy that you need to be the role model of your team. He liked to have fun, liked to joke around, a great teammate, obviously, but not necessarily what the Toronto Blue Jays were looking for. You get Justin Turner, the leadership qualities are all there. When we talk about Justin Turner, though, and you get the 1 year, $13 million. We'll talk about that after. But overall, when you signed Justin Turner, a lot of fans hated this. They were not on board. Like, Justin Turner, why are we signing a 39-year-old? In that aspect, kind of fair. Like, he's 39 years old. Again, like, you want to make your team younger, things like that. But you looked at Justin Turner, you looked at what he did with the Boston Red Sox at that time. Again, we wanted more. We didn't want it to just be Justin Turner. That was obviously where we were at, but we didn't hate the signing whatsoever. You looked at Justin Turner, he hit 280 last year. He hit 24 home runs, some along those lines. You looked really good on the Red Sox. And again, we weren't necessarily expecting that. We were expecting a little bit of regression. If he was going to hit 265 with 15 to 20 home runs, it's probably something we're going to have to be okay with. It's Justin Turner with his 39 age season. You can't expect a whole lot, but it wasn't a bad signing in retrospect. And we'll go over the season stats as well. We just needed more. Justin Turner was the last signing, the major signing of the Toronto Blue Jays offseason. It couldn't be like that. And as we saw, Justin Turner was definitely not enough to bolster this offense. You needed to do more. The Toronto Blue Jays did not do more.
Yeah, and that's the biggest piece, right? Like when we look back, I remember us saying that we didn't mind this piece and Justin Turner being a part of this team. And I still look back on that and I sort of agree. I don't think it was terrible. But at the end of the day, if that's your big signing, that's a huge problem. I can't still believe that our two biggest signings were IKF and Justin Turner, but that's what this season brought for the Toronto Blue Jays. In saying that, when looking back over Justin Turner's numbers, I mean, I'll go over them quickly here. With the Toronto Blue Jays, 91 games, 6 home runs, 31 RBIs, 60 strikeouts, 39 walks, a batting average of 259, an on-base percentage of 350, and slugging of 372 with an OPS of 722. So again, he goes on that hot streak. Like I've always talked about, Justin Turner's a very, very streaky hitter and really always has been. When he's hot, he looks great. Then when he's not on, oh my God, it's like you want to find the nearest cliff to drive off of. But in saying that, he did, I think, what this team wanted from him. He wanted that little bit of leadership, and I think he showed that he was capable of delivering that. I mean, even when he had those talks with Davis Schneider, which we brought up about, just the ins and outs of sort of the game as a big leaguer, and what you have to do to change your game every season to combat what the pitchers are seeing from you. Um, and I don't necessarily know his average and everything like was that terrible. It's just the fact that when he was horrible, he was just horrible. Um, I don't know, Carter. I want to go over his numbers, obviously, with Seattle as well, just sort of as a post All-Star break. 48 games played. He had 5 home runs. So in half the games, he had almost the same amount of home runs, 24 RBIs. So again, driving in runs. He had 35 strikeouts, almost half the strikeouts. So he's striking out actually more than when he was with the Blue Jays. A batting average of 264, which beats when he was with the Blue Jays, an on base percentage of 336, again beating what he did with the Blue Jays. Same thing with slugging, 403, and with OPS at 766. So he actually did better with Seattle. It's just it didn't really matter. It wasn't that good that it was a driving force, it seemed like, for either team that had him this year. I guess at the end of the day, Carter, what do you like? What did you see from Justin Turner, for one, that you really liked about him when he was with the Toronto Blue Jays? And then how do you feel that when he was traded, do you think it was the right time to move on?
The best part about Justin Turner for me was just this guy had the longest at bats of all time. You had for sure 6 pitches, 7 pitches being thrown per at bat. He fouled off everything. He was one of the best 2-strike hitters on the Toronto Blue Jays, one of the best 2-strike hitters in the league. It's very hard to strike Justin Turner out with 2 strikes, and just the ability to extend the at bats. It's always a benefit when you get the pitcher's pitch count up with your teammates. Obviously, being able to see the pitcher pitching, especially if you're at the start of a series, you can get the starting pitcher out of the game earlier. Bullpen arm, same thing. Obviously, you get to the bullpen. That's very good at the start of the series. Justin Turner was very good at doing that. But the problem with Justin Turner is that, for me, you got to trade him, obviously. I'll go into that later on. But you talked about the streakiness. Justin Turner in April looked really good. We were really patting ourselves on the back. Like, this is not exactly what we expect for Justin Turner the entire season. Like, he hit 300 with an OPS of 864. Did I expect that throughout the entire season? No, not necessarily. But I'm like, hey, if this guy can hit 275, 270, hit 15 home runs, drive in 60 with RBIs. That's not something I'm going to be too upset about. But then you go into his May, and Justin Turner was one of the worst hitters I have ever seen in May. It was terrible. He did not look good whatsoever. He hit 111 on base of 210, slugging out 139 for an OPS of 349. Like, you can't have that. You can't have 1 month where you're an above average MLB hitter, you're one of the better hitters in the league, and then be an absolute pumpkin at the plate for the entire month of May. And that stat line right there, that entire month, is why his overall stat line doesn't look as good as it should. When you hit 111 in the month of May with the amount of at-bats that he had, it's not going to play. And that's why the Toronto Blue Jays offense throughout that month of May was horrendous. You had Bo Bichette, who was a pumpkin at the plate. You had George Springer, who debatably was worse than a pumpkin. I don't even know what George Springer was doing at that point. You had Justin Turner, who was another black hole in this lineup. You had Kevin Kiermaier, who was playing fairly consistently, who was hitting horribly. At this point, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. was starting to turn it around. Dalton Varsho had some stretches in this point too. But if you're relying on IKF, obviously was there too, but if you're relying on IKF and Dalton Varsho to be the main source of your offense, you might as well chalk up the season right there. So with Justin Turner, it's the streakiness. Again, you want other players to be able to make up for him at least a little. But with the way the season went, with how Bo Bichette was that bad, George Springer, numerous other players on this team were that bad. When you have that many players on your team underperforming in May, it doesn't give fans, first off, a good taste in their mouths. It sets off your season very poorly because it's tough to get in that mental headspace, as we kind of talked about for the slumps on Monday. It's tough to get out of that. You get in a team slump. They tried to do meetings. They tried to have conversations, do little things. Nothing really seemed to work. And that's what led to Justin Turner being traded at the trade deadline, which you had to do. You had to sell your assets. Again, going into the season, you don't want to trade everyone. But when you're a million games under 500 at the trade deadline with really no hope to make any sort of run in the postseason, you got to sell your assets. You got to get some guys back. And they did that with Justin Turner. And this was one of the trades that was actually pretty solid as well. I do like the return they got here in RJ Schreck. He's been a very good hitter in Double-A. And just getting anything back, honestly. If it could have been, I don't know, it could have been your brother that we got back. Could have been a bag of chips. Doesn't really matter what you get. You get something for Justin Turner that's more than you would have had at the end of the season. Wasn't about to get re-signed. And with the Justin Turner experience in totality, I think he gets more backlash than he necessarily deserves because overall the season stats, they aren't necessarily bad for a 39-year-old. It's just with what Ross Atkins left us with to start the season. Justin Turner was your major signing. It's tough to get excited about that.
Well, and Carter, I mean, that's a big part of it, right? And I think it was the letdown of the offseason, the fact that it was just Justin Turner and IKF. I mean, me and you had this conversation sort of before we turned on the podcast just about what was out there. What were the availability of other guys? And how did Justin Turner stack up in regards to guys like Cody Bellinger and Jorge Soler and a couple of the other ones that I know that you have written down in those notes, Carter. So where does Justin Turner rank, I guess, in the off-season availability?
Well, and that's the thing. We look at some of these guys that we talked about in the offseason. We talked about Jorge Soler. We talked about JD Martinez. I talked a little bit about Rhys Hoskins. Even a guy like Cody Bellinger, we talked about a little bit as well. You look at these contracts for what they paid out, and you look at the production that you got. For example, Jorge Soler, 3-year, $42 million deal. Obviously, Justin Turner made $13 million. So that's slightly less. But Jorge Soler's stats, 241 average, 21 home runs. Again, the home runs there, big piece. 780 OPS. And then you go to JT Martinez, a 235 average. This guy's on a 12-year deal. 16 home runs, 726 OPS. Rhys Hoskins, 214, 26 home runs. That home run total's nice. But you get the on base isn't really there. The 214 average, not necessarily there. Is that a guy that we want in the Blue Jays lineup? I mean, the home runs definitely would be nice. I'll tell you that. It's 722 OPS. And Cody Bellinger even, 266, 18 home runs, 751 OPS. For how much you paid Cody Bellinger, is that really going to outweigh what Justin Turner did for your team? Again, you could get Tommy Pham when you look at it in retrospect. Tommy Pham was a guy that played good. Jock Peterson had a very good year as well. But again, hindsight is 2020. It's very easy to tell what could have been. When you look at the Toronto Blue Jays, you look at the free agents. Again, a lot of hype compared to a lot of these guys that we are talking about right now. But when you look at what they actually did in the season compared to Justin Turner, maybe it's slightly better, but it's not changing the Toronto Blue Jays.
No. And I mean, again, we always go back to what's their letter grade for the season with the Toronto Blue Jays. And then what was their tenure? Well, not a lot of tenure here for Justin Turner. So let's talk about what he did this season. And this season for me, Justin Turner was a C, maybe a C plus. He was pretty much what I expected. He was hot. He was the exact guy I knew he was going to be. He's a very streaky, hot and cold hitter. When he's on, he's on. When he's cold, he's cold. This year, he was desperately cold. Like he was freezing in the ice in Antarctica when he was cold. But sort of what I expected. I didn't, as a 39-year-old, I didn't expect a ton. I was okay with the signing, and it would have been okay if there was other pieces that surrounded him.
For me, the May really leaves a bad taste in my mouth. Maybe this isn't as much on Justin Turner, but you can't have an OPS of under 400 in the month of May when your other teammates are struggling, when you're supposed to be a guy that's hitting 3, 4, 5 in the order. It's a little bit underwhelming for me. So I got him as a C minus. I don't think, again, when you look at Justin Turner, he's 39 years old. Can you really expect him to be playing the best baseball of his career? No, you can't. That's definitely unfair. But with Justin Turner, it's more so on the team, I would say, with Justin Turner rather than Justin Turner. You cannot blame Justin Turner for the 2024 Toronto Blue Jays season. Again, you want him to perform better. But even if you have the career averages of Justin Turner, it's not changing this team whatsoever.
Yeah, that's right. And I mean, at the end of the day, that was what it was. This past season was an experiment, and the experiment failed. And I think we've been seeing that over the past few years. This is not working. There has to be a change, and we know one's coming. It has to be. So we'll wait and see what happens in this offseason. We got a lot more to get into. I mean, we got to talk about Trevor Richards. I mean, this guy, there's a lot to talk about with him, just with the character that he is. And then, of course, we got our big question of the day. So stick around for segment 3, as it's a fun one today. The Monday one was great. That got us talking and throwing, snapping it around a little bit. But hopefully this one will do the same. Make sure you guys stay tuned for segment 3 as well. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. I always talk about how much I love FanDuel because I'm winning money. And when I win money, that does help. So go check it out. I've been really into the live game betting, and that's because I can see the trends, what's going to happen. You sort of get that feeling in the pit of your gut sometimes when you're watching a game live. Also, NFL fans, you can start the season with big returns on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. I always talk about it. FanDuel is amazing. They got so many options for bets. They got so many different options available, and I will be using it all year on the NFL as well. That's FanDuel.com. Visit FanDuel.com to look at the odds and see what works for you. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So, Carter, got to get in to Trevor Richards. This one, I don't know how to feel about it. You know what? I always talk about some guys, and I know my feeling on them, right? And I've been so up and down over Trevor Richards' time with the Toronto Blue Jays. Of wow, maybe he's got something. No, he's the worst pitcher ever. To oh, maybe he's found something. Oh, he looks good. Oh, he's the worst pitcher ever. Are you sort of in that same boat where it's been a very up and down roller coaster with Trevor Richards' tenure as a Toronto Blue Jay?
Absolutely. And like, obviously you guys should know, we watch a lot of Blue Jays games together. So this is a lot of the dialogue that we're having between each other. Trevor Richards traded to the Toronto Blue Jays in 2021. I'll start there. 2021, nothing burger for me. Like, whatever. Trevor Richards is there. The bullpen, not very good. Trevor Richards helps it slightly. You don't make the playoffs. That's unfortunate. 2022, this is where he was the worst pitcher my two eyes have ever seen. I'm going to throw Tim Meza in there as well. These two we talked about all the time. We hated when they would go out there because I think Trevor Richards still had a curveball at this time. And when he threw a fastball and a curveball that were both not effective, oh my God, it was tough to watch this guy on the mound. Human pitching machine. Then you had Tim Meza come up from the left side and throw like 91. And it just wasn't a fun time. You go to 2023 though, Trevor Richards, he surprised me a lot. And he kind of switched over his perspective on me. Like, Tim Meza had a great year. I still didn't really like Tim Meza. Don't know why. Random thing for me, Tim Meza, I've never really been a fan of. But Trevor Richards, he gained my respect in 2023, cut out the curveball, went to a 2-pitch pitcher. The changeup, it's disgusting. It's one of the better pitches in baseball. The problem with Trevor Richards is that you only have 2 pitches and the fastball sucks. The only reason the fastball is okay is because it plays off that changeup. Going into 2024, this year again, especially at the start of the season, he looked really good. He had to go in a role where you had Jordan Romano, Eric Swanson injured, Chad Green injured for a while. Where Trevor Richards was the opener. Trevor Richards was the closer. Trevor Richards was the high leverage, the low leverage. Trevor Richards pitched in every single situation, and he looked pretty good a lot of the time. So especially when Alek Manoah went down, he came in as a starter, as the opener, I should say. And a lot of the time, he almost had a starter pitch line where he'd go 4 innings and only give up 1 hit and have to throw 45 pitches in those 4 innings to be very efficient. So with Trevor Richards, it's just an up and down valley story with Trevor Richards. A lot of highs, a lot of times that I was very happy to watch Trevor Richards and very excited to watch Trevor Richards. A lot of the time, I wanted to pull my hair out with Trevor Richards. So, Braden, I'll kind of throw it back over to you to just go over his stat line with the Toronto Blue Jays.
Yeah, I got to get into it. I mean, I look at this and it's not good. Like, it's really not good. Like, the entire time, even when it's better, it's still not good. I look back at 2022, and his ERA was a 5.34. 2023 was a 4.95. 2024 in totality was a 4.55. With the Toronto Blue Jays in 2024, he was a 4.64. He played in 45 games, 52 and a third innings pitched, gave up 36 hits, 30 runs, 27 earned runs with a whip of 1.146. And it just, I don't know. I look at Trevor Richards and I know what I'm going to get. I'm going to get him throwing probably a bunch of wild pitches because for some reason he likes to, spike the ball in the dirt in front, like way in front of the plate. He'll have the changeup that'll look nasty, and then he'll throw a fastball that gets launched to the moon because it's just horrible. So I don't know. It's a mixed bag. I mean, that's how he did with the Toronto Blue Jays, and it was fine. Then he goes to Mini, obviously, puts up a 4.15 ERA with 10 games played, 13 innings pitched, gives up 8 hits, 6 runs, walks 11 guys, strikes out 13 with a whip of 1.462. He's just Trevor Richards, man. Like, I don't know. These stats really don't change a whole lot from year to year. He's the guy that's advertised. He comes as advertised. Whatever's on the box, the Trevor Richards action figure, it's the same on every box all the way down, top to bottom. You know what you're going to get.
Yeah, I'm going to add a few stats to complement that as well. So one thing that I noticed with the Twins when I was going through my deep dive is that Trevor Richards has been historic. He walks a fair amount of people. the Minnesota Twins, his walks per 9 were 7.6. So he was walking almost a guy every single inning. That's why the whip is high as well. The command really went out the window for Trevor Richards. And there's the narrative that Trevor Richards really wanted to stay in Canada. Like he did not want to go back over the border to the United States because his June ERA was 1.23. And then we get to this point. We're at the end of June. We're like, okay, Trevor Richards probably gone. Yimi Garcia definitely gone. Yusei Kikuchi gone. We're at this point where, okay, we're selling off our assets. The season did not go well. Trevor Richards, his July ERA was 13.06 over 10 and a third innings, 16 hits, 15 of those were earned runs. That's not very good. You're allowing guys on base and all of them are coming in. That's not exactly what you want. So maybe Trevor Richards just loved Canada, tried his best to tank his trade stock. Didn't work out, unfortunately, for Trevor Richards. But one thing I do want to say, this is my take on Trevor Richards and the Trevor Richards experience. You can tell me if I'm wrong or if you see some ways I'm thinking. With Trevor Richards, the ERA for me, it matters, but it's not really something I'm looking at because a part of the Trevor Richards experience is that you'll have Trevor Richards go 6 innings and he won't really give up anything. He'll give up beyond hit here and there. But then you have a Trevor Richards blow up inning where he gives up a 490-foot bomb and you get 4 runs in that one inning. And if you know bullpen ERA, you're not going out every single time you go out, you're probably going to pitch 1 inning, maybe 2 innings if you're lucky. So it's pretty hard to build that ERA back up if you do have those blow-up starts. And Trevor Richards is the king of blow-up relief appearances. He's either really good, he's not allowing a run, or he's allowing a million runs because of that long ball. Because the changeup isn't effective. It's like pitching. It's batting practice. That's what it is. Yeah. It's a pitching machine. The fastball, if they're not sitting on that changeup, the changeup isn't effective. The fastball is very easy to hit as well.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it is. We talk about streaky and hot and cold. That's Trevor Richards to a T. The guy could go out there, like you said, and have a great outing, and you're like, holy moly, like look at the changeup. That thing is disgusting. And then the next time he comes out, he gets absolutely nuked off of, and you're like, this guy's the worst. Like, what happened in 3 days that this changed so, my opinion on him changed so drastically? It's because it's from 0 to 100 real quick. And that's Trevor Richards. I don't know, man. I'm looking at sort of what I'm grading him, and it's tough for me because I've really enjoyed some of Trevor Richards. But I've also hated my life with Trevor Richards as well. So as sort of culmination of everything, I think I'm giving his Blue Jays tenure a D. I'm giving his 2024, I'm giving him a C for that, just because I didn't mind him in 2024. He did the jobs that was asked of him. He had those blow-up starts, but he did the job that was asked of him, and I was sort of okay with it. I knew that was my expectation. He sort of met my expectations. So Trevor Richards just very meh for me all around.
Yeah, I got his Blue Jays tenure. Again, it's not great. When you look at the totality, it's not exactly what you want. I'll go D+, I guess, for his tenure. Because, again, he looked really good this year. Again, I'll give my grade for this year. Last year had some moments as well. 2022 was horrendous. 2021 didn't make too much of an impact. But when we talk about Trevor Richards, showing another stat, his expected opponent average is about 200. So that's just another thing. So if he's giving up a hit, they're hitting it very hard. But overall, Blue Jays tenure for Trevor Richards, I give my grades. That's a D+. For this season, 2024, I'm really going to I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt on the July. I'm just going to say that he loves Canada. And with all of that he had to deal with all the spots that John Schneider was throwing him in, I'm going to give him a B-. I think he did very good with what he was dealt, being an opener, being a low leverage guy, being a high leverage guy, closing in some aspects. When you look at Trevor Richards' expectation, you expect him to be the closer at all on the Toronto Blue Jays? Not whatsoever. You don't really expect him to pitch in the 8th inning either. You expect Trevor Richards to pitch in the 6th, maybe 7th inning, and that's pretty much it. So due to the bullpen, what happened, due to the expectation, I think it's fair to give Trevor Richards a B-. But one thing we haven't really touched on that I talked to you about off camera that I wanted to talk about on this podcast is how we got Trevor Richards and what came along with that transaction back in 2021. So Rowdy Tellez goes to the Milwaukee Brewers. At that point, Rowdy Tellez, he had a very good year. I think it was in 2022 where it looked really good, and you looked at the trade and you're like, oh, it's probably kind of got fleeced here. But when you look at what the Toronto Blue Jays got back, they send over Rowdy Tellez, they get Trevor Richards, who was supposed to be the main piece in that trade. Now we got another guy that we've been talking a little bit on this podcast. I'm not sure if you guys have heard of him, but Trevor Richards and Bowden Francis returned to the Toronto Blue Jays in 2021.
Yeah, man. I mean, what do you say to that? It's just ridiculous. It actually is ridiculous. But that's what we talk about with these prospects is we don't know how they're going to turn out. It's lottery tickets. And Bowden Francis' lottery ticket looks like it's hitting right now. Like if we're talking a Powerball, we have 6 of 7 numbers. We're just waiting for that last ball to drop and see what happens. Because Bowden Francis looks amazing. And if it's Bowden Francis for Rowdy Tellez, we still win that trade. Never mind, throwing in, I guess, Trevor Richards is whatever. I don't know. It's a nothing burger for me, I guess, at this point. Again, nothing against Trevor Richards. I think he was what he was. But at the end of the day, you look back on this trade and it has nothing to do with Trevor Richards now.
And it's funny because Bowden Francis was the throw-in of that trade. It's like, oh, well, I guess we'll throw this just to sweeten up the pot a little bit. And again, we still need to see what Bowden Francis can do consistently at the big league level. But if we're shaping it up right now, if we're talking about future projections, I think the Blue Jays are going to win this trade by a landslide. Again, knock on wood, we got to hope for Bowden Francis' success. Trevor Richards, thank you for what you did for the Toronto Blue Jays. Didn't really come with a lot of success, unfortunately. But you could say that about anyone that was on the Toronto Blue Jays from, 2017 until now?
Yeah, pretty much.
So saying that, we do have another listener question that we're very excited to get into, but we're going to take a short break. So we're going to come at you guys with that question coming up. Today's episode is sponsored by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. They are the easiest and most exciting way to play fantasy sports because it's just you against the numbers. Prize Picks is very simple to play. I can make my picks and submit my entries in as little as 60 seconds. I decided I'm going to go away from my MLB picks because I've been taking some flyers and been a little bit risky on it, and I haven't been winning, mainly due to my own fault, but I'm using that to transform my picks to a couple different leagues. So I'm going to really focus on the NHL for this one. I got Cale Makar more than 1.5 points. Fantasy, I'm a big fantasy guy on my fantasy team. Matthews more than 3.5 shots. This guy just loves to just light the lamp, try to throw bucks at the net. And I got Kyle Connor, hometown guy for us, at least me and Braden being from Winnipeg. I got him more than half a goal. So just scoring in the game. If you know which players are going to perform on specific nights, this is a no-brainer. Download Prize Picks and start making your entries today. You can download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit matchup to $100. That's code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit matchup to $100. Prize Picks, run your game.
Carter, we got another question of the day. Locked On Blue Jays question of the day. We don't do it every day, but it's a fun segment. Carter, what do you got for the question of the day today?
Yeah, sometimes I guess the question of the day, the way we're doing this, sometimes the questions are better than other days. Didn't necessarily cover a question of the day on Tuesday, but we got another one today. And today's is, how much stock do you put into players having one really good year or one really bad year? So the way that I'm kind of taking this is, for example, like a guy like Bo Bichette. You look at Bo Bichette over his career, he's been a very good hitter for every single season of his career until this last season. And one on the other side, you could say, well, had a really good year and is normally not the greatest player. You could talk about IKF on his Toronto Blue Jays tenure. Just way over career expectations. Very good. Do you expect it to continue? Not necessarily for IKF, but how much stock are you putting into one good or one bad year for a player?
This is a tough one, Carter. At the end of the day, not much, to be honest with you. This happens all the time in baseball. You're talking lingering injuries. You're talking, a slump season. This happens all the time. And this is why people jumping on the Bo Bichette's bad bandwagon is ridiculous to me. This is a consistently very good hitter, and we're putting him in the dumps. I mean, at the end of the day, for me, the one down year, one great year mean nothing to me. If it's early in a player's development that they have a blow up year, maybe that can translate better. But if it's early and a guy has a bad season, I don't really take a whole lot away from it. And if you're talking about veterans, guys that have been in the league even a few years, they have a bad year, I don't take anything away from that. And if they have a great year, it's like, oh, wow, IKF had a really good year. But is he going to regress to regular IKF? Probably. Is Bo Bichette going to bounce back and be probably regular Bo Bichette? Probably. So at the end of the day, not much, to be honest with you.
Yeah, you made a good point with the age. Like, if you have a guy that has a random bad or good year at 35, they have a random good year at 35. That's kind of weird for me. But a random bad year, you're like, okay, you look at the career, you look at the consistency. That's the biggest thing. We talk about consistency all the time on this podcast. You look at the experience. If you have a young guy, for example, like a guy like Alek Manoah, you had that one good year. You can't really take a lot away from that because you just haven't really seen it consistently at the big league level. And you look at the Alek Manoah experience, it's been very up and down. We're hopefully going back more on an up right now, but we're going to have to see. But as overall, it's the consistency. Like I said, you're 32 years old and you've had 7 good seasons and 1 bad season. I'm probably going to lean more towards you having another good season. If you're, again, 35 years old and you've had 9 bad seasons and then you have 1 year where you're unbelievable, I'm probably going to lean more towards, okay, I'm going to stay away from this guy because he's probably going to regress back to his expected. And that's sort of what we had with Cody Bellinger in 2022. 2023, had this big year, kind of this contract, make it year. He looked for a huge contract, looking for 150, 200 million. Nobody was really in on that with Cody Bellinger because he didn't get it very consistently. He's obviously an MVP in his career, but you look at from 2020 up until now, very inconsistent, not a guy that you're looking to throw 200, 250 million at. You look at what Cody Bellinger did this year. It wasn't necessarily bad, but do you want to pay this guy 200 million, 25, 30 million a year for those numbers? For me, not necessarily.
Yeah, I agree. And that's what it comes down to all the time. We preach it on this podcast, is the fact of consistency. You have to be good. Otherwise, you're not going to get the money. And a lot of teams will take shots like that with big contracts, and then it comes to bite them. And so I think in the sense of Blue Jays for that, they don't like to hand out those huge, massive contracts too often that are multi-year deals. And I think it does work well, but at the end of the day, sometimes they do miss on opportunities of guys that are younger that have good seasons and they don't pay them. And, we're looking at that same thing with Vlad and Bo right now is are they going to pay them the money? What are they going to pay them? So again, we'll have to wait and see what happens. I mean, a lot of it, a lot of it's speculation. Yes, Bo Bichette could be bad again, but I don't think that's in the cards. And will IKF be amazing? Probably not, but maybe. It's hard to say. Baseball is a very interesting sport like that.
I just want to elaborate when you said the Toronto Blue Jays don't give up big contracts, because I know what you mean by that, but I'm not sure if the fans do. Mean like the Toronto Blue Jays don't give up these max $600 million contracts, these $700 million contracts. They're going to pay the George Springer $25 million a year. Here, I'll let you take it back on to kind of explain.
Yeah, so instead of paying a 10-year, $400 million deal, they'll pay you a 3-4 year deal worth a lot of money, but it's not going to kill them in the long term. In the 10-year span, they're not going to be eating contracts on guys that they took a shot on. They just won't do that. They notoriously haven't done that. They've been very close to those 2 to 5 year contracts that they've put out. Yes, they're worth a lot of money, but it's not such a long time span that it's killing them in the future. So yeah, good catch on that one, just to make sure I explained that well enough.
Yeah, the only one right now that's on like a very long contract on the Toronto Blue Jays is Jose Barrios. Other than that, you had Kevin Gausman, you had a 5-year. That is, I'd say, on the longer side of a contract. But overall, the Toronto Blue Jays are, more inclined to seemingly sign these bridge deals, especially in free agency compared to re-signing players. But the Toronto Blue Jays benefit, they've never really had a player like Vladimir Guerrero Jr. in their system, where it's a homegrown talent that they've built up and has been proven to be one of the better players, if not a top 10 player, top 5 player in all of MLB baseball. So it's going to be interesting to see. Again, this is why there's a lot of uncertain things. There's not really a lot to go back on to see what the Toronto Blue Jays have done in history. And then you got Ross Atkins, who presents himself with a million question marks as well. So this is, like we talked about all of pretty much all offseason, we're going to be talking about this might be the biggest Toronto Blue Jays offseason of their entire existence. So when we look at these free agents, we look at, again, we'll go back to the consistency part, good or bad. There's a lot up in the air, and it really comes back to Ross Atkins and how much you trust him. But we gotta just let it play out. That's kind of where we're at in our Toronto Blue Jays offseason.
Yeah, just gotta wait and see, and that's where we are. And we'll get some news coming soon. Obviously, when the season comes to an end, and free agency opens up, we'll be able to see what is everybody looking at? What are the deals that are on the table? Who is in play for the Toronto Blue Jays? We'll have to wait and see on all of that. In saying that, Carter, I just want to put that out there. As always, we appreciate everybody listening to us, making us their first listen. As always, if you need a second listen, go check out Locked On MLB with host Paul Sullivan. Sully runs a great show. He'll be covering the playoffs and the World Series here. So make sure you go check him out, Carter. Anything else before we sort of kick out of here for the day?
Not much. Just enjoy World Series baseball. It's, again, the last week or so of baseball here. So it's on. Enjoy it. Playoff baseball, like these series, one of the best playoffs that I can remember in history. Obviously, you got that Mets game. The Guardians-Yankees series was ridiculous. Dodgers-Mets even. It seems like everyone's blowing each other out in that series as well, the way it panned out. So it's been a crazy offseason. I expect that to continue in this World Series. But as always, thank you guys for watching. We appreciate all you guys coming back consistently. But we'll talk to you guys again tomorrow.